So, primarily, what I was hoping to accomplish in this meeting is if we kind of come up with requests for action for the meeting next week, because I think we got some good groundwork done. I'm just trying to figure out where the link to the doc went. Oh, I know where it is. Because when we're doing the meeting next week, it'd be good if we can give some context. Does that make sense? What do y'all think?
Yep, it makes sense.
Link in the chat to, I think, the folder, yeah. Just so you guys don't have to dig for it too. Maybe. There it goes. And then yeah, I forgot to make an agenda for this. I have an agenda in my head, but I forgot to actually write it in the doc.
I'm gonna pitch in educational one.
These chips that they have in Google Docs are pretty cool now. Like that calendar thing and stuff. All right, my second link in there is the link to the agenda. If you want to fill in your names, that would be cool. And then so basically we have, actually I'll just throw it in the notes here.
Oh wait, put it on the wrong day.
It does. Oops. So Corey mostly and Rian, because I don't think, and Sergio, I don't think the three of you were here last time. So kind of what we talked about last time was like we put together this doc that is kind of like a template for, because we are, or at least I'm bad at naming things, for the educational modules that we'd like to create. The idea being that we could, if we can create like kind of a single lecture and assignment that goes with it, that maybe ultimately would turn into a full curriculum. But the idea is like if we could just kind of do a single lecture with some sort of assignment and or demo that goes with it, then we could kind of offer a bunch of those, and then we could kind of say, hey, faculty member, you want to demonstrate, I don't know what we put on there for the initial list. So making a website, right? And so here is a lecture about it. Here is a demonstration that you can do during lecture, and here's an assignment, kind of all put together with like a rubric and and maybe auto grader or whatever, depending on what it is, so that we can kind of just say, okay, here's a little blob, and you can just kind of inject this into whichever class you want to inject it to. Part of our template was also like what kinds of courses we would think it would fit into. But it doesn't obviously have to be exhaustive as much as just kind of like saying, oh, this might fit into, an intro web dev class or something. Because, we all name the classes differently. We have different, kind of levels for them and all that jazz. So easier to just kind of say, here's a module, take it as a unit. And I don't know if we put the link in the notes. Justin had an example of one that he had done a bunch of years ago. But I don't think we don't have a link to it in the notes. I don't know, Justin, if you see if you could add it to like last time's notes. But that was kind of the idea. And so what I'm hoping is that sorry.
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay,
and I just
cool,
want to say one more quick thing. It would even be valuable even if it's like 20 to 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be like a full class period or whatever. It can be quite short, but should show something neat.
Yeah, I wonder if so I want to maybe start putting some notes in there of like, what is this document?
So I added all this to the notes. I think we could, if we wanted to brainstorm a little bit and come up with something that we thought was good in this meeting, or I don't know what the agenda is in terms of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so it was kind of like brainstorm, or at least what and I think is what you were saying, is kind of brainstorm the some initial ideas, and then kind of maybe prioritize them so that we can kind of say next time we can say, hey, we have these initial ideas, here's a template. Does anybody want to sign up to kind of build some of these? And then, or offer your own kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, well, shall I start and just throw one or two out?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
or if we're all following along, there's a section for it in the proposal document. It's here. If you want to kind of put them at the end there, or we can kind of all put them at the end, but then maybe talk about them, or we can talk about them individually, either way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we want to organize that, but I'll say that one of the things that I think might go over well is to sort of show the scaling ability of cloud native. So I'm imagining what you do is you say like, oh, well, let's see why people actually like to use the cloud. What we'll do is we will go through and first have just like a LAMP stack web server running. Okay. And just run this, normally on a system. And then, now we're going to go and start this thing that's going to flood it with requests. And we see, oh, it works for a while, but then it kind of starts to fall over. And, then we have this problem of how do we spin up another instance and what happens? And, then, do we start up extra virtual machines all the time? And, it's like, it's kind of a pain for us to manage. If that makes sense. And then
yeah,
then the idea is that, oh, well, if you actually go to the trouble to containerize this, which isn't difficult to do, then all of a sudden you get auto scaling, you get all this other stuff. So as you have demand, things increase, and does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm
And
trying
then
to write it down in that doc too.
you scale up, you scale down, pods are created and destroyed. You're not running servers you don't need in cases, in other cases, you're using the resources you need to, and so it saves you like a lot of money and effort. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I want to add something because I have to leave. In that repository that I wrote there, I have an example of a course, but I think that I can use your template to elaborate a little bit with that structure. So it also has the modules, the syllabus, examples, and everything. My initial idea using that in the university was that like other universities can use it, but because we are working here together, I think that maybe I can start using your template to see how it looks and maybe start in that way.
Do you mean for the links that I posted?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
No,
no,
the other one that,
you
the
can use
document.
it there you
Okay.
want and modify it and change it. Like lots of people have used those assignments. Like it's been used in about 100 classes at about like 30 universities before.
Okay. I think
Like
that
hundreds. of classes.
maybe the important thing is that I already structured all my content to teach like cloud native technologies in an operating system course. So maybe you can take advantage of that part.
Sure. Like my general view from what I've seen is that we have to say things like, what are the educational outcomes? What are the learning objectives? That sort of stuff tends to be important if you're going to do a bigger thing. If you're just going to do like, here's kind of a cool demo you can do, and here's what the students will learn. It's a little easier to pitch that as like, oh, you could slot this into course X as a cool little hands-on, and instructors might be more willing to take it, but they're not going to take like I think originally and to some extent what Landon is aiming for is having more of like a complete course almost, or at least very similar to that people could go and eventually utilize. And that is going to have like a whole lot of things that, like that take home assignment that I linked there, it takes about 20 to 30 minutes. I've seen some instructors just give it in class, and some instructors just ask the students to take it home, just do it yourself and write about it, talk about it, whatever. So you can kind of do that either way. I don't know if that makes sense.
it did to me, but I think Sergio disappeared for a minute. But I think, yeah, I think, I like the approach of, kind of grassroots model, right? Of like, hey, let's build a bunch of pieces, right? And then at someday, if we can get some traction on some of those pieces, we can kind of stitch all the pieces together and be like, okay, here's an actual class,
Right. Yeah, and to be honest, like it'll be a big win for us to be able to talk about how we got some adoption of the stuff we're doing, even piecemeal, because that will be a lot harder than at least I thought it would possibly be. I thought like, hey, we give you something cool for free. It only takes a few minutes to do. It doesn't take any real prep work. Everybody's going to want to use it. It's definitely not the case. They're, instructors, especially at like liberal arts schools and things like this, everybody's busy. They just, are worried what's going to happen if things go wrong or whatever else. So we really need to make it out of the box.
Question there, Langdon.
Mhm.
The Linux Foundation they offer training, self-paced, online, instructor-led certification. Have any of you actually taken any of these courses that the Linux Foundation offers on cloud and containers? It looks like there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 courses that are already offered.
So when I've looked at those,
Okay.
and I haven't taken them to be, but when I've looked at them, the focus of most of that training and most other training that I've ever seen is how to operate Kubernetes, not how to build cloud native applications and
Gotcha.
why you want
Okay.
to build a cloud native application.
Okay.
So that's the gap I'm trying to fill, is the
Okay.
why is kind of like Justin's point just now of like, the reason that you build your LAMP stack in a container is because you get all these features where
Right.
you start getting flooded with requests. Or my big one is, event-driven architectures are a good idea in the cloud level because essentially pub sub, right?
Okay.
So not so much about how do I configure Tekton or something to deploy my application, but rather why I would be deploying my application to Kubernetes in the first place.
Gotcha.
Or
I just want to
what
make
advantages it takes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we were all aware that there are courses already. That way, if anybody comes to us and say, "Hey, did you guys even look at these courses that were already offered?" Then we're covered. We've already, we're already aware of them.
Yeah, I think it may be a good idea to essentially write, some paragraphs or something in a document in
Okay.
kind of the root folder or adapt, because I tried to say a lot of that in the kind of the initial proposal for the group, but maybe we need a more fleshed out, couple of paragraphs of elevator pitch of why, to answer essentially that question, to kind of say,
Okay.
here, because I'm betting we're going to get that question a lot.
There you go. Yeah, good. Okay, thank you.
So maybe what we can say is, the other part too is it being a little bit more democratic, and that making sure that they're available as kind of open source content.
Right. Okay.
But I might leave that on the QT.
We also want to be a little careful with that in some ways, because one of the big concerns that people had was the instructors had was that if they want things that also include assessment. They want things that include a homework that can be turned in, and they want the solution. They want you to give them the solution so they don't have to actually do the homework themselves. But they want to make sure that none of their students could possibly get that solution either. And so we have a lot of issues we will have to think through related to how to handle that in a good way. I basically, in my experience doing this with the Seattle stuff that I sent, would just kind of personally vet people and have like a phone or a video chat with them and look them up on their website and chat with them a little bit first, and then I would say, okay, yeah, no problem, and give them a solution. But I didn't just kind of hand it out to anybody with an email address with an edu at the end.
Right. Yeah, one of the organizations, one of the classes I teach is based on a class out of Berkeley called Data 8. And they essentially do the same thing. They have public GitHub repos, which has like lecture slides, and then they have a private one that you have to like get vetted to get access to, which kind of has all the homework assignments and the solutions.
Let's see. One suggestion I had for a module would be on the Go language. Unlike I think all of you, I'm not delivering any cloud native courses at my school, but I am researching mentorships and internships for my students. And what I found is that to be a contributor, you need to know the Go language. And so I would be interested. I don't know the Go language, and I'm trying to teach myself, but I'd be interested in something on Go to help students become contributors, developers, and all on down the road like that.
So I would,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Or I was just gonna say, so I think there's already a lot of content on language learning. So what I
Okay.
might propose in a sense is something slightly different, which is that one of the things that we should collect essentially is like a resource guide. So, okay, you want to go do event-driven architectures and you want to use Go in them. Here's 16 different open source or even paid
Mhm.
classes that you can go take, that are just kind of available online, so that, because like I said, I think a lot of that exists. So maybe instead of trying to reinvent it, we actually collect what we're
Okay.
aware of, at least as a different kind of module, like, or as a, maybe a
Okay.
different kind of thing, but basically collecting those things so that, yes, like 100%, but maybe we kind of say, we're gonna defer to other people for providing it, but we need to tell you how to go find it.
Okay.
And I will also say that's exactly the kind of thing that I think the LF or others are probably going to do better than us. Like the Go community or the LF are probably going to put, like, I feel like, we should find a niche that is unique. I think that's really important. I think if we're effectively just trying to make academic, put an academic stamp on a module that almost repeats what they have a training course on already, that I think that's maybe not the right way to do it. I think they tend to focus more on, as Langdon was saying, like how you set something up, like the exact commands to type and at things like this. And they focus a lot less on what are the underlying concepts, which is really what you learn in a computer science curriculum, as opposed to like a computer information systems or IT is where you learn like kind of what commands to type. And so I think if we lean heavily into the computer science side and pick interesting concepts from that side, I think that's where we're going to have our most impact.
Sorry, taking a note. Does Corey, I don't know if you're seeing the meeting notes, does the second action item make sense to you, kind of? Ah.
We should probably also kind of define who wants to volunteer for which action item.
Yeah, so just before you got here, I guess we were kind of saying, so yeah, well, yeah, so there's two halves of that problem. One, I wanted to identify a kind of a list of action items for the next meeting of like, here's some things that we would like people to take on. But yes, there's also these action items, which are not that list. So yes, and I guess is also a good idea. So it sounds like Rian, am I saying your name right, Rian?
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. Well, I win one name for the day. So I don't know, Rihanna and Corey, I don't know if you'd want to team up to try to do a template like we did for the educational modules for those kind of resource guides, or I don't know, whatever we want to call them. Like, I'm the worst at naming things, so please think of other names than whatever I come up with. Which would provide that, like, and you could start with Go, you know, but it could be 87 other things too. And I think that'd be a really good start. But if we had a template for it, then we could kind of say, okay, here's a template, here's an example in Golang, and if somebody wanted to do it for you know, Rust, they would know where to start.
Yeah, AWS has ramp up documents. We can sort of take a look at those. I actually have one or two of those. And so if a student doesn't have the certain skills or knowledge, they offer these ramp up documents to, okay, learn about this at this place and learn about this at this link. So I think that sort of aligns perfectly, like what you're saying there, Langdon, about resources elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
No, because
Yeah, I like not doing the work.
language resource is really hard with the sandbox where to test it, and if we can just leverage the things that are there and rather deliver a unique deliverable on an academic level rather than teaching things that's already for free available out there, and just list the resources.
Yeah, definitely.
So could we put your name,
other-
Corey, on it? I'm just like putting it. Corey, can we put your name on that action item? Is that something you could kind of?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, and Rian, you would like to help?
Corey, you start on it. If you need help, ping me. I can.
Okay.
I have Golang developers that work with me, and
Certainly.
I make terrible Golang code. So, but I've got people that make beautiful code.
Okay.
So where they get their resources, there's a lot of YouTube things. There's actual playgrounds that they use. So yes, ping me, and we work together.
Okay, perfect, Rian.
Thanks.
Cool. And I will definitely take on the first one. At least the straw man, or the initial version. I presume it will need work after I take a stab at it. First, I'll ask ChatGPT to write it, and then I will fix it, and then I will ask for more help after that. But yes. I think we were also trying to come up with more. Catherine, just kind of on the, you know, if you look in the proposed modules document, which is inside educational modules towards the end of it, there's a proposed list of modules. Do we have, actually for all of you really, but do we have more ideas for what those other modules might be? And I'm kind of hoping in that template for the, you know, kind of external resources kind of thing, you would do kind of the same thing. It's like, you know, we think Go should be on here. We think Rust should be on here. We think, you know, whatever. Like I said, basically I find most people do much better if they have like something to start with, you know.
I mean, it looks good, and again, I feel like you're in a much better position to identify what is like the right, what are the right topics, right, for the students where they're at. But glad to see a few ideas on here.
Yeah.
I do think I think the density of applications, the Y cloud are really good. I think that the make a website and example of WASM might be okay, but they're kind of not framed in a way that I think a computer science professor will understand why they're valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, you know, as a core concept, like, you know, you can take density of applications and sort of say, turn that into a module around the motivation behind, behind why virtualization is so popular. And so anywhere where you have a class that deals with virtualization, you can sort of, you can frame this in as that. And then why cloud is sort of like, why is containerization valuable? Why are certain, how to what extent is there value in this, and how do you, I guess it also demonstrates things like auto scaling and all that management and stuff that happens with things in a fairly good way. But I think the others, I have a little bit of a harder time figuring out like what the sort of hook is with the way it's framed now.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think to make a website one, I think what it's missing is kind of like the before and after of that, or I guess what I can't remember who wrote this one, but at least the way I read it as is that, hey, look, it's exactly the same, or it feels very similar to doing it natively. So you kind of, what might be a better demonstration is like, hey, look, here's me making a web page on my local computer, right? But now I can shove it in a container. And if I shove it in a container, then I can actually run it on your laptop, oh student, right? Without you doing anything.
So I think if you do that, then the way you'd want to do that is you'd want to show that you can make a container on an application on like a Windows-based system, and you can containerize it and ship it to like a MacBook laptop and then deploy it in a Linux server or something.
Right.
And then something like that, like you have to have like that kind of hook. Or at least that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
But also
Actually,
then,
yeah.
Also then there's always a discussion about like, well, why not why not Java, or why not do this at a language level, or whatever.
Oh, actually, I just wrote in a note about like a good example of why that isn't easy with image pathing. So, one of the simple, you do a super simple HTML, right? But as soon as you make an assets directory and put your images in there, now it doesn't work between Windows and Mac.
Right.
And so, but if you shove it in a container, it will work, even with the assets directory.
What about the whole microservices kind of new way of architect? I don't know if is that already part of the curriculum anyways, or because I think like for me, like when I started learning that is like that was like kind of like the key to everything is like, okay, this is how you used to do it, which is, and then this is the new way of doing it. I don't know if that's already part of the curriculum or not, but because that enables all this.
Is that part of scalability management concepts about like why cloud here? Because if I had this, I would use it as a launching off point to discuss exactly that. But I also
but I think
part of it that's appealing. Like I might have missed something that connects to what you're thinking about.
one of the demonstrations that I kind of that quickly comes to mind in that kind of scenario, right, is that is you can kind of say, hey, I have this monolith of some kind, right? It does this whole piece of functionality. But if I break it up into pieces and then demonstrate, oh, I can still do that monolithic functionality, but now I can also hook it up with another piece and actually get a new piece of functionality that wouldn't have been possible with the monolith, because it would have had to, like the monolith can't do it because it's not decomposed enough. Don't know exactly what the example would be, but I think that's an interesting demonstration of how like breaking out your services, kind of the Unix way, right, allows you more flexibility in how you put the pieces together. And that might be a good demonstration that, so like, I don't disagree with you, Justin, but at the same time, another, kind of another module might be something along those lines. I'm not sure if that's too big though, but maybe you could figure out a way to do a simple version of it.
What do you think, Catherine?
Yeah, because my thought was first, if you understand this new way of architecting things and what containers, which containers basically enabled, right? Then now suddenly the next step is like the cloud, and what the possibilities of the cloud suddenly become like completely different, right? Like now you can do all these things that you could not do if it's just in a data center, the whole scalability thing. So I feel like it's like, at least for me when I learned it, right, it was like first like, okay, this is how it works, this is how you architect it, and then this is what the cloud kind of enables. But again, I'm no expert. It's just like the way kind of like I kind of approached it, which
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I do also want to say that in practice, like my experience with doing these kind of modules is a lot of times it's like a good sign that we have something where it's like, oh, there's like 3 different lessons one could learn here. And what we would need to do is really create like a series of modules where, you know, they all have the same base setup, and then the instructor could go through and show this or give it to the students. I will also say that from my experience, some of the instructors are scared to do a live demo, even if they've done it 50 times in practice or whatever, because something always goes wrong. And so having something they can give to the students as an assignment that's basically a lab that the students do, a lot of them sort of prefer that model too. And we could have a series of labs where one week, or I don't know, the first 30 minutes they go and see an aspect of it that focuses on what happens when a pod fails or what happens when this happens, and another that focuses on it scaling up, and then it focuses on how you can modularly add functionality. And like I think we could design something like that. I have some ideas, and I'm sure others do too.
Yeah, I
or are we
also
going
think
to
we
do
have
like oops, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's also not a bad thing to kind of have multiple modules that demonstrate different pieces of the same thing, or even the same thing in kind of a different way. Sorry, that was the addition.
Were we going to do, because last meeting we discussed of starting with a module, a one-day module that we could share with people, and that would be kind of like the entry point, like, right, like a proof of concept kind of things, like, hey, here you have something, do you like it? And to get people engaged. Is that something that we're still planning to do, and identifying what module that should be?
And so we included some examples from Justin's prior work. So there's that, but no, we haven't kind of decided on kind of doing kind of the first one as an exemplar, which is not a bad idea at all. But no, we hadn't really kind of identified one. But it probably would get help with take up, to do such a thing. So we would need to identify which one we'd want to do, and obviously we'd want one that's simple, because it'll demonstrate better. The more complex the module is, right, the harder it'll be, as an example.
I do think, though, that this might be a decent one to do, because I think it would be quite appealing to a pretty broad range of instructors. And
which one's this?
like the one that we were just talking about with sort of
The Y Cloud one.
Yeah, Y Cloud. Because we can break it up into pieces and have those pieces be individually doable. It feels like, to me, the kind of thing that like learning by doing would help a lot of the students. I think we can make that case and get out there and really kind of promote it. I think that, like, you and I both do the virtualization type one also, Langdon, which is like a good sign that we're already doing that in the classes we teach. But I do worry a little bit that what we're going to show and how we're going to show it and stuff is going to be intimidating for instructors that don't teach those concepts. Because I've had people who use my course materials basically cut those out because they just don't feel comfortable talking about virtual machines because they're afraid they're going to get a question. So they just say this high level concept of it's like, oh yeah, there's some abstraction and there's something that runs and so on.
Yeah, I can see that. The only problem I have with the Y Cloud one is it feels very big. So I would say we want to try to figure out what's the initial scope. You know, or you know, but what we could do is kind of start, you know, if we kind of started the template for it, and then, you know, I think it'll fall out of doing the template to kind of say, okay, here's the scope of the first part, or, you know, or it'll break itself out somewhat naturally.
You know, for another suggestion is back in June, I attended the OpenStack conference in Vancouver, and I sat in on a beginner session on OpenStack, and the presenter had the attendees, probably about two dozen in the room, simply clone their source code from GitHub, and then run one command, and then the whole, you know, OpenStack did an install. So then the attendees could actually see the dashboard and see all the, you know, the navigation and all the actual tools. I'm wondering if possibly we could do one module on just, you know, cloning a repository and then running maybe I guess we're moving away from Terraform, we're going to OpenTofu, and then just building out something so the students can see it and you know, learn by doing, like Justin was saying. I don't know if that might be too complicated.
I think that kind of model can work, and we can use that for really any type of module that it might fit with. So we could probably do the module that we're describing here with that model. I think that would make sense.
Okay, yeah.
But we just have to kind of see what's natural and what works. We wouldn't want to rely on that, because once again, some instructors will want to just give it as a one-off, and if, you know, if a student can't just individually separately do it, then it's a, you know, it's different. It's like a, yeah. By the way, we also want something that we can do a hallway demonstration of. Like we can show somebody in like 5 minutes in the hallway, like, oh, here's a module that you could drop into your class, and here's something really cool with it. And then they can go back and read the direction, like read more about it and figure out how to work it in. But we want something of that length too, because Langdon and I are probably going to be at CCSCs, or we're going to be at SIGC or somewhere like that, pitching this to people. And we, you know, they're going to get like a stack of business cards and whatever else from anybody who has anything they want to show. And that's the only way we're really going to stand out, is if we have something visual that they really remember.
Right. Pretty pictures. All right, so what do you think? Should we kind of say let's take on, you know, kind of collectively that kind of Y Cloud one for short, and, you know, kind of start that module? I don't know, bandwidth wise, Justin, do you want to lead that?
I mean, I'm leading Security Pals assessment for all the graduated, incubating, and a bunch of the sandbox projects this semester, and I just don't have the cycles to spend on this, unfortunately.
Okay. then I guess I could lead it. I'm just not sure how fast I can do it either. But I don't think we can kind of say, I think we could say next week, we can kind of say, hey, this is kind of the first one we're going to use as like an exemplar. We do have examples that other people can do. And so you can either contribute to the one that we're kind of working on, or, kind of start another one. And then we can, and then we'll just kind of bump along a bit while we try to get traction there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like so quick. I think like as long as we get something started, and then just build on it. And I know we have a lot of people who have already done stuff. I assume this type of, because we were talking definitely Langdon and Justin, you don't have anything that is that like basic, but maybe is there something, Sergio, you said that you have a lot of stuff. Do you have like stuff that is very basic, like about why cloud? Maybe there's like something that we can repurpose and adjust for that one day module.
Yeah, I think that, well, I already have a Google Slides with, let's say, all the basic Kubernetes commands. And I have my GitHub repository with a lot of simple basic examples. So
Yeah, maybe you can share that, and then Langdon
Yeah,
can look
Is
if
that
that
in
fits
the-
into that.
Is that in the repo you put in the
Yeah.
chat earlier?
same repo. And the slides, let me see, the slides are in another place.
Maybe we should create a Google sheet or something where we can just add links to everything and then collect whatever people have with little comments, what it is. And, maybe it's just a matter of taking stuff here, and here, and then customizing it a little bit. Because we should not reinvent the wheel if someone has already done stuff. It's probably not going to work exactly like what we're talking about, but some bits and pieces hopefully can be reused.
Let me find the slides. Let me see.
Yeah. I can create a Google sheet and then share it, and then we just add the links to it. And then,
I'm already creating it,
oh, okay, good. And we should have that anyways, right? We should have that.
probably. Yeah, so it's in that same educational modules folder. I don't know, I call that potential prior art. And then, I don't know, I just have 3 columns: topic, author, and link to resource. That was what I thought of.
And maybe comments. Sometimes it's good to kind of, I don't know. Well,
Yeah.
you can always add it whenever someone actually has a comment.
That's true, right? Well, I put it on there anyway, so now it's there.
Awesome.
Yeah, so Sergio, do you think you could just kind of fill out the first row with that link? I wonder, actually, why don't we do something like subjects covered or something?
Subjects what?
Covered, like, I'm trying to think of a good word for it, but kind of like, like, or maybe intended purpose of the content, or like,
okay.
so I'm kind of like something that says like, this might be useful for, this module versus that module versus that module or something. Rather than like topic seems a little simplistic.
Let me see. Mm. Yeah, let me share the, let me see.
All right, we are almost out of time. Is there anything else that we should definitely cover before walking away?
Yeah, just let me share that slide.
Will anybody else be on China next week? I'm going to be there. If anyone else is in KubeCon China and wants to meet up, let me know.
Okay, yeah, cool. I am still not sure if I'm going to KubeCon. But hopefully.
That's the link of the slides.
Yeah, can you just add, well, I can do that too, but like I shared the link in the channel and I just made
in
a
the
note so other
Okay.
people can, I don't know, in case we have other people who know about resources, they can add it to.
Yeah, I think that there are some small parts in Spanish, but I can change it.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that I can change it.
Everyone should have edit already.
No?
I can create that. Hold on, I'll change the setting.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone can comment, not edit.
Okay. You want to switch it?
Yeah, oh, I just did.
And the repo. I think that I am going to share the repo in the channel. So
Okay, I think the conference here is starting again, so I'll hop off.
Yeah, I have a meeting in 2
People are
minutes. All right, so you want to wrap it here? Is there any other comments or thoughts? Right, cool. Well, thank
Hey,
you everybody for coming, and I'll see hopefully all of you next Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.